Okay, so for this deep dive, we're going to unpack something kind of different.
Yeah.
You know, we're going into this world of UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. You know what I'm talking about, the new fancy way of saying UFOs.
Right.
And we're diving deep into this interview with David Grusch.
Yes.
This former intelligence officer. He was on the Joe Rogan Experience. And this guy, his claims are really something else.
Yeah.
I mean, he's out here saying the U.S. government, they've got their hands on something they shouldn't have recovered. UAP materials.
Yeah.
Like evidence of tech that's way beyond anything we know.
Absolutely. And what makes Grusch's account so compelling is his background, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't just some guy, he's got 14 years in Air Force intelligence under his belt. He was working with classified programs. He knows the world of secrecy firsthand.
Yeah, no, this is not some like random guy on the internet.
Exactly.
This is a serious guy. And he wasn't always gung-ho about UAPs, was he?
No, not at all. He was actually very skeptical initially, but that perspective, it really shifted while he was serving on the UAP task force.
Okay.
So he went from, just analyzing reports to actually interviewing pilots who had these encounters with these unexplainable phenomena.
Wow.
Talking to high-ranking officials who claimed to have seen the evidence themselves.
Hmm.
So it really transformed him from a skeptic into a whistleblower.
Yeah, and one of the most intriguing parts, at least for me, is this incident from 1933 in Italy.
Right.
It sounds like something out of like a conspiracy theory website or something.
Yeah, it's right, the 1933 incident. So Grusch claims that a craft was recovered in Italy, it was hidden, and then eventually the U.S. government, they got a hold of it.
Really?
And he's very deliberate, revealing the specific incidents. Like he's trying to demonstrate this long history of UAP activity that potentially predates even the modern UFO sightings.
It's like we're only seeing like the tip of the iceberg here.
Absolutely.
Like how much more is out there that we don't even know about? And he's hinting at this Vatican connection, which just blows my mind.
Yeah. And what's crucial here is that Grusch, he's very meticulous in laying out his sources. He emphasizes, he didn't just stumble upon some random rumors. He actually spoke with multiple high-ranking officials. He reviewed documents. He really connected the dots.
Yeah, he's got like a paper trail. He's not just making stuff up, it sounds like. And this leads us to his big claim, this clandestine government program that's been hidden for decades, dedicated to retrieving and reverse engineering crashed UAPs.
Right.
That's a bold statement to make.
It is, and it gets even more interesting when you consider that Grusch claims to have had some aspects of this program confirmed to him by a foreign adversary, someone who had independently acquired intelligence on it. So this suggests that the U.S. government is not alone in this.
It's like a spy thriller with secret programs and international intrigue and this potentially revolutionary technology.
Absolutely. And at the center of it all is Grusch arguing that this program, while it might have started with good intentions, it's gone too far in its secrecy.
Right.
And that humanity deserves to know the truth.
It makes you wonder what could be so groundbreaking that it's been kept under wraps for decades.
Right. It has to be more than just a better toaster oven, right?
Right. Exactly.
And this is where ATIP comes in the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. You might have heard of it in relation to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, that's the one that launched 1,000 memes about shape-shifting creatures and all.
Exactly. But Grusch, he clarifies that ATIP, at least in part, wasn't really focused on Skinwalker Ranch. It was more about gaining access to something else entirely.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What was the real target here?
He points to Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor.
Exactly. He claims they had access to materials, potentially even intact vehicles, that they were very secretive about.
What could they possibly have that's so important?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
Grusch suggests that ATIP was kind of a bureaucratic smokescreen. The goal was to cut through the red tape and get a look at whatever Lockheed Martin was hiding.
So we're talking about like bureaucratic warfare over possible alien tech. This is wild.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just speculation, right? Didn't he say that someone actually broke into a facility?
Yeah, he mentions Dr. James Lukatsky, who worked on ATIP, and he's publicly claimed to have knowledge of recovered UAP materials, and he even describes this incident where he and his team used some, let's say, forceful methods.
Useful methods.
To get into a secure facility to examine a recovered craft.
But are we talking like Mission Impossible style breaking and entering here?
That's what it sounds like.
Wow, okay, so we've got covert operations, high-level cover-ups, whispers of technology we can't even comprehend. What did they find, though?
That's where the details get a little murky. He doesn't explicitly say what he saw, but he hints that he's seen some things.
Okay, so more to come on that, but before we get deeper into this, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll explore these claims of reverse engineering.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back, and before the break, we were talking about like covert operations and whispers of tech that's just beyond our understanding. But let's get into like the real meat of this. Like, what is the goal here with all this reverse engineering? I mean, are we talking about actually trying to build our own alien tech?
Well, that seems to be the implication. Yeah, Grusch seems to think that the goal is to unlock those secrets of UAP tech, maybe even replicate it, for our own use.
Okay.
He even compares it to the Manhattan Project, and not just in terms of the secrecy, but like the potential impact this could have.
Wow. I mean, that's a big comparison. The Manhattan Project that changed everything, right? That was the start of the nuclear age. So is he saying we could be on the brink of something that big again, but with alien tech this time?
That's what he's suggesting, and he doesn't stop there.
What else?
He also implies that some of the tech advancements we take for granted, stuff that's everywhere now that might have come from this program.
Wait, hold on. Is he saying like smartphones, the internet, like our everyday tech could be linked to this alien stuff?
He doesn't make that direct connection, but he hints that the research from this program, it might have influenced different fields. Maybe even sped up our progress in ways we don't even realize.
So you're telling me that my phone could be like indirectly inspired by alien tech? That's wild.
It's definitely a mind-blowing thought, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it kind of makes you think, what else is possible? Like if we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg now, imagine what we could achieve if we knew everything.
Right, exactly.
But it's not all sunshine and roses, right? Grusch also seems pretty worried about all the secrecy surrounding this.
Yeah, he's very vocal about that. He argues that this knowledge shouldn't be kept in the dark,
Okay.
Humanity deserves to know. He says we need to deal with the fact that we're not alone and that this technology exists.
So it's not just about scientific curiosity for him. He sees this as like an ethical obligation.
Absolutely. And there's another layer to this. He's worried about another country, one that maybe doesn't play by the same rules coming out with this information first.
Like a Sputnik 2.0 kind of situation.
Exactly. It's that fear of being caught off guard on a global scale.
Right. And this all circles back to that big question, right? Are we alone? And Grusch seems pretty convinced that the answer is no.
Oh, yeah. He's pretty firm on that. And he even suggests that we might not be dealing with just one type of alien intelligence. He mentions multiple origins, even brings up the idea of interdimensional beings.
Interdimensional beings. Okay. Now that's a whole other level even for this conversation. What does that even mean?
I know it's a lot to wrap your head around. Think of it like this. Imagine a flat piece of paper, right? Like a two-dimensional world. Now picture a sphere passing through it.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Those two-dimensional beings, they would only see a series of circles as that sphere cuts through their reality, right?
Right. I guess they wouldn't be able to perceive the whole sphere, just slices of it at a time.
Yeah, exactly. They might think those circles are separate things, not realizing they're all part of something bigger, something from a higher dimension. It's a simplified analogy, but it gives you an idea of how interdimensional beings might interact with us.
So these UAPs could be like glimpses of something operating on a totally different level of reality, something we can't even understand.
That's the gist of it, and it opens up a whole new can of worms. Why are they here? What do they want?
It's the question everyone wants to know the answer to, right? If they're so advanced, why haven't they just said hello?
Well, Grusch has an interesting take on that. He compares it to observing wildlife. Maybe to them we're just fascinating, but ultimately not that important.
So unlike those mountain lions he mentioned earlier, just living our lives completely unaware that something else is watching.
It's a humbling thought, right?
It is, and a little creepy.
But it speaks to how vast and mysterious the universe really is, how much we don't know.
We've covered a lot here, from secret programs to interdimensional beings. It's a lot to process. But before we get too lost in the weeds, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the potential consequences of all this and what the future might hold. All right, so we're back, and, we've been talking about all this amazing tech and the possibility of, other beings out there, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. The fact that all this is supposed to be top secret. I mean, Grusch seems pretty concerned about that.
Yeah, and understandably so. It's not just about, missing out on cool tech. It's about global security, the balance of power, even the potential for conflict if this information gets out there, but not in the right way.
Right, like what happens if, say, China or Russia announces that they've cracked the code on this UAP tech?
I mean, it would completely change the game, right? Countries would be scrambling to catch up, maybe even doing things they wouldn't normally do to get ahead.
It'd be like a whole new arms race.
Yeah.
But instead of nukes, we're talking about tech that could rewrite the laws of physics.
Yeah.
It's exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
Exactly. And Grusch argues that by clinging to the secrecy, we might actually be making that situation worse.
Okay. How so?
Well, he thinks that the U.S. should be more transparent, lead the charge in setting up some kind of international rules for all this.
Okay, but how do you even start that conversation when so much of this is still hush-hush?
Well, that's where the Schumer Amendment comes in. Remember we talked about that earlier?
Right, the one that calls for a presidential panel to oversee the whole disclosure thing.
Exactly. It's basically a framework for transparency, for bringing this whole thing out into the open.
So not just like a data dump on the internet.
No, a controlled, measured approach.
Okay, and it sounds like it's got some serious support, right? I mean, bipartisan support, which is saying something these days.
Yeah, it seems like more and more people are realizing that this can't just be swept under the rug.
But didn't you say there was some pushback in Congress? Something about a couple of powerful guys trying to block it?
Yeah, unfortunately, the chairs of the House Intelligence and Armed Services Committees, they haven't exactly been on board with all this.
Huh. If these claims are so bogus, you'd think they'd want to investigate, clear the air,
You'd think so, but Grusch speculates that maybe there are some people who benefit from keeping all this quiet.
Okay, so shadowy figures pulling strings to control the narrative. It's a classic conspiracy theory, but in this case, the stakes are huge.
They are. We're not just talking about politics or power plays anymore. This is about humanity's place in the universe, the potential of technology that we can barely imagine, and the very nature of reality itself.
It's like the whole world can be turned upside down.
Yeah.
And we're just starting to realize it. So where do we go from here? What can our listeners do if they want to learn more, be a part of this?
Well, I definitely recommend checking out that Joe Rogan Experience episode with David Grusch. It's long, but it's worth it to really dive into his story, his evidence.
It's a wild ride for sure. And for those who want to do more than just listen, reach out to your representatives, make your voice heard, support organizations that are trying to bring some real science to the study of UAPs.
Absolutely, because this isn't just about satisfying our curiosity. It's about engaging with some of the biggest questions facing our species.
It's a story that's still being written, and we're all a part of it, whether we realize it or not. So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of UAPs, government secrets, and the mind-blowing possibilities of what's out there. Keep looking up, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep an open mind. Who knows what we'll discover together.